cobalt and lapis. The entire Badakhshan province is loaded with lapis lazuli. So it's not just lithium, which have just made a headline. But the point is that Afghanistan is a treasure gold mine worth trillions of dollars in any case. And of course, the location, geography of it. So there has always been scramble for Afghanistan. Why the Soviet Union came into it? It was not just for the geography of it. It was, of course, the natural resources. Then, of course, coming down to the warm waters. Again, the Americans have come in, not just for the natural resources, but other strategic objectives. So, point is, Pakistan will have to take the destiny in its own hand. We destroyed the Soviet Union. We have the capability to defeat and bury the Americans in Afghanistan. And Americans know this. Why? Because their supply line goes through Pakistan. And the very simple fact that now there's a conflict between the American armed forces and their political leadership. We see that it's boiling out now in the public. The laundry is now out. The dirty laundry is being washed.
Just quickly, I want to bring you back here, Mr. Hamid, because you were explaining things quite interestingly there. There seems to be now, to put it mildly, a confused Uncle Sam. Neither knows how to end the conflict, neither knows how to continue with it. And now we see these conflicting statements coming out from the US officials. There has got to be a military endgame, and there's also got to be a political endgame. What do you see it is happening now, which is unfolding, particularly within the American ranks?
You see, I have fought against the Soviet army in Afghanistan during the 80s. As a volunteer, I was there. And the Soviet prisoners that we caught, we interrogated them. And the frustration that they had was, we didn't know, they said, we didn't know when the war would finish. We didn't know what we were doing here. You see, this is the biggest lethal poison for a soldier, that he doesn't know what he's doing in a battlefield. He's killing, he's getting killed, but has no objective in mind. This syndrome is now affecting the US Army now heavily. They've been in the battlefield for 10 years. They have no end in sight. They have no objective defined. They have got frustration and desperation level. The suicide rate is higher than the number of troops being killed in the battlefield. So the perception, now the strong feeling that is being developed in the Pakistani security establishment is, it's Americans' war, let them handle it. If we go in, we'll mop it, clean it our way. We'll handle Pakistani interest, we'll not look forward to the American interest. And this is creating panic and confusion within the US armed forces and within the US political leadership.
Very quickly, Brigadier Imtiaz, we see another changing relationship between Kabul and Islamabad as well now. And we're talking about what the Americans finally may have realized, that there needs to be some sort of political solution to this. It's either reintegration or it's reconciliation. Pakistan seems to be more pro towards the reconciliation side, bringing the Taliban into the mainstream of the political process, whereas the Americans are saying, let's weaken the insurgency, let's then make deals with the low-level Taliban, which President Karzai isn't awfully that sort of keen about. How do you see the changing nexus, particularly the mistrust now between the Karzai government and Washington?
You rightly said there is certainly deep mistrust between Karzai and the American government, which has surfaced now, and it surfaced in the last Karzai elections when they did not support him. And in fact, Pakistan supported Karzai, number one. Number two, that Karzai, I think, now has come to realize the ground situation, realities of the ground situations. And he thinks those ground realities are inescapable. And Americans, come what may, cannot meet the challenges of those ground realities. And that's why he feels very strongly that it is the Taliban the reconciliation between Taliban and the Afghan setup is an inevitable requirement to hope for a stable peace in Afghanistan. And Pakistan is also rightly supporting this viewpoint of reconciliation of Taliban, because Pakistan has seen Afghanistan very closely. It has virtually acted as a frontline state for Afghanistan in war against Soviet Union, and they have learned the lessons from the history, and they are trying to follow the lessons learned by them. Whereas the Americans are not seeing the light, which they did not see when they moved into Vietnam, when they moved into Iraq, and now in the Afghanistan.
They haven't learned from their past mistakes.
Yes.
Very, very quickly, Mr. Hamid, can you just break down this myth or fact? Is there good Taliban and bad Taliban?
That is correct. You see, from Pakistan perspective, there are. not from the American perspective. You see, from Pakistan perspective, the Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan, the insurgent group created by CIA and RAW, operating from Afghanistan, which is being supplied, equipped from Afghanistan into Pakistan, are the bad Talibans from Pakistan point of view. And these are the Talibans you find Pakistan army fighting against in Swat, in Waziristan, in South Waziristan, the group of Baitullah Masood, Hakimullah Masood, and Mullah Fadullah. The good Taliban, from Pakistani point of view, are those Afghan resistance which are fighting against the NATO and the Americans, but not against Pakistan. Pakistan is not supporting them, but Pakistan is not fighting against them as well. See, Americans want Pakistan to go on a head-on clash with the Afghan Taliban as well. And this is what Pakistan is resisting, because Pakistan naturally has to hedge its bets for the future. While the Americans themselves are paying millions of dollars to Afghan Taliban for not attacking them, they expect Pakistan to go and fight the Afghan Taliban. Nonsensical, ridiculous policy. This will not happen. They should realize this.
But one thing which is difficult to understand is that on the one hand, the Americans are talking about integration of low-level Taliban, yet they don't want. I mean, obviously, before 9/11, the Americans didn't really have too much of an issue with the Taliban regime. Okay, they didn't recognize it, but they weren't really bugging them that much. No, so why not extend the hand of friendship now when you've got your hand up again?
The point is, if you certainly allow me, Americans have been dealing with Afghan Taliban for the Unicol gas pipeline. Taliban delegations used to go to the Americans. It was only when the Unicol gas pipeline broke down and the Taliban decided to give the contract to Bridas, the Argentinian term, that the Americans decided for a regime change. You are very right. Taliban had no problem, or Americans had no problem with Taliban. Now, the fact is, now Americans want at least want a face-saving exit strategy. That's all. They don't want another humiliation of Vietnam coming their way. But it's coming their way. They've got no choice here. Pakistan is the only country which can bring about some kind of reconciliation between the various fighting Afghan factions. But the Americans themselves have no capability of doing it. And on one hand, they wanted to start these military operations in southern Afghanistan to get a military edge so that they come in a better bargaining position. Because while they are talking of a troop surge, they are also talking of an exit strategy. These conflicting signals. And strategy was simple. Gain an upper hand in the military battlefield and then negotiate from a better position of higher political authority. It's not happening. So the only option left to the Americans is leave these lands. They don't belong to you.
One final couple of comments from you both gentlemen. Firstly, Brigadier Imtiaz, how do you see now the so-called Kandahar offensive unfolding? We now know that the troop surge should be complete by August, and that by early fall that they'll be taking on the Taliban in Kandahar. I mean, realistically speaking, if they haven't managed anything in 9 odd years, do they really think that this is going to be the game changer?
I think they say again trying to play a foolish game, because as Mr. Zaid also said, they have already lost the battle in Afghanistan. And they know very well that they have to go, and only thing their struggle is to have a face-saving device. Now you see, they have to go in the July next year. They have to start pulling out. This summer, this operation should have gone. This summer it didn't go. Will they launch this operation in that area, in that geographical terrain, in the winter season, which is an impossible task?
Last word from you, sir. We know that, of course, Pakistan is an integral part of what is going to happen in the next coming couple of years here in terms of the regional stability. But one country which we've perhaps skirted over slightly is Iran. And what Iran's position would be. Can these two Muslim brotherly countries provide a feasible solution to some of the problems and issues?
The fact is, there would be no solution without Iran for Pakistan. The Pakistanis have lately been defying the Americans in building bridges with the Iranians, especially in this Jundullah issue, the man who's been caught by the help of the ISI. And then the IP gas pipeline. Again, the Americans are very upset, but Pakistanis are going through it. Similarly, for Afghanistan, it has to be a joint solution between Pakistan and Iran as well, because the Northern Alliance is very close to Iranians. Taliban are very close, could be very close to Pakistan. The common threat which Pakistan and the Iranians have in the Americans. Indian presence is not very uncomfortable for the Iranians, but very uncomfortable for Pakistan. So both these countries, Pakistan and Iran, while we have come together bilaterally, we can play a strategic role in Afghanistan. It has to be done. It will be done. Americans will have to talk not just to Taliban, but also to Pakistan and Iran if they want any face-saving exit, if they want any of the troops to go back. Otherwise, they should learn from the British colony. Only the doctors came out just to report the news. Army is gone.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Of course, this is a war Afghans have never lost, as my guests are telling me, and not in the past and simply not now. And of course, Pakistan will remain critical for the stability of this region, and also, of course, Iran can play its hand. You've been watching In Focus. Till we meet next time, I'm Adil Saber. Take care.